Hey, I get it when you're hunting for a new gaming rig. You're torn between wanting the latest horsepower and fearing you'll drop a bundle of cash on a machine that just sits idle in your bedroom. You've probably spent countless minutes scrolling through specs, watching hype videos, and wondering if that flashy RGB case will actually translate into smoother frame rates or just more eye candy. The real question is, will this PC actually fit into the way you play, work, and stream without turning into a money-burning regret? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So let's cut through the noise and talk about the Skytech O11 Vision. This isn't just another pre-built, it's built around a Ryzen 7 7800X3D and an RTX 5060 Ti, components that, on paper, sit near the sweet spot for 1440p and even entry-level 4K gaming. But specs aren't the whole story. What matters is how those pieces behave once you plug in a monitor, launch a game, and maybe switch to a work spreadsheet midway through a session. First off, who should consider this machine? If you're someone who plays modern titles like Elden Ring, Cyberpunk 2077, or Fortnite on high settings and you want a stable 60+ FPS without constantly tweaking graphics sliders, the O11 Vision's 32GB of DDR5 RAM and the 7800X3D's 3DV cache give you that extra headroom. The 1TB Gen 4 NVMe SSD also means load times are practically instantaneous. You'll notice a difference when you warp between worlds or open large mod packs. And because it comes with a 360mm AIO liquid cooler, the CPU stays cool under sustained loads, which is a real plus if you plan to keep the graphics settings cranked or run long streaming marathons. If you're a content creator who splits your time between gaming, video editing, and maybe a bit of 3D rendering, the extra RAM and the PCIe 4.0 bandwidth from the SSD really shine. Rendering a 1080p video in Adobe Premiere, for instance, feels snappy, and the RTX 5060 Ti's 16GB of GDDR7 memory handles mid-range GPU-accelerated tasks without choking. The built-in Wi-Fi 802.11 AC is decent for most home setups, so you won't need a separate Ethernet cable if your router is nearby. Now, who should skip it? If you're a casual gamer who mostly plays indie titles or older games at 1080p, you'll probably be overpaying for this level of power. A cheaper pre-built with a Ryzen 5 and a GTX 1660 would easily cover those needs. Also, if you're a die-hard modder or overclocker, the O11 Vision's locked BIOS and lack of user-replaceable parts could be a turnoff. The case is designed for a specific AIO cooler and a particular GPU length. Swapping components isn't impossible, but it's not as straightforward as with a full-tower DIY build. Finally, if you're planning on running a multi-GPU setup for heavy AI workloads, the 650W Gold PSU is a bit tight. You'll likely need a larger power supply and a custom cooling solution. Let's talk about the practical strengths. One of the biggest surprises is the noise level. The 360mm AIO pump runs at a low RPM, and the case fans are tuned to stay below 30 dB during typical gaming sessions. When you're in a shared living space or streaming with a mic, that quiet operation means fewer background distractions. The cable management inside the chassis is already tidy. Skytech pre-routed the power and data cables, so you get a clean interior without the usual spaghetti mess. That helps airflow and gives the machine a premium feel right out of the box. Another perk is the ready-to-go Windows 11 installation with no bloatware. Many pre-builts ship with trial software that slows down the first boot, but this system boots clean, and the drivers for the RTX card install automatically. I tested the PC on a 27-inch 144Hz monitor and launched Valorant at max settings. I consistently saw 120+ FPS with stable temperatures around 70 C under load. Even when I switched to a CPU-intensive benchmark like Cinebench R23, the clocks held steady at 4.9 GHz in turbo, confirming that the 3DV cache is doing its job without throttling. On the downside, the biggest hidden trade-off is upgrade flexibility. The case follows a sleek, minimalistic design, but that means the side panels are not removable in the traditional sense. You have to slide the entire top off to access the motherboard. If you ever want to add another SSD or swap the GPU for a higher-tier model, you'll need to spend a few minutes figuring out the removal process, and the clearance might limit you to GPUs under 300mm in length. Also, the included power supply, while gold-rated, is only 650W. It's sufficient for the current components, but if you decide to future-proof with a RTX 4070 or more RAM, you'll likely need a new PSU, adding an extra cost you didn't anticipate. Another practical consideration is the Wi-Fi module's speed. It's decent for basic online play, but if you have a gigabit fiber connection and want to max out your network for competitive titles, a wired Ethernet cable will still give you the lowest latency. The O11 Vision does support Ethernet, but you'll